As co-owner of the art and design company Black Paint Studios, I get to do fun, meaningful work like this kind of stuff. I was meant to be a creative leader. I've known that in my bones for a long time, but I almost didn't make it here. This very staged photo is from my first job out of college, and you can tell it's the 2000s because of those eyebrows. Yes, there's an explanation. The newspaper I worked for at the time was trying to get more young subscribers, but couldn't afford models for their ad campaigns, so they used staff like me instead, and this is just one of those ads. I decided, because I wasn't fulfilled in those corporate jobs I'd been working at, so like about 10 years or so after that, after this job, I stayed in marketing jobs at different corporations. And they were okay, but I wasn't fulfilled or moving up. So I decided to switch to the agency side of the industry. Those are the firms that the companies I'd worked at would hire to do their branding and ad campaigns. I'd hired plenty of them myself. So when I was getting ready to make that move, I had visions of my visits to those agencies dancing in my head. The ping pong tables, the colorful murals, the beer kegs. Everyone seemed to be in a band or was an artist after work like I was. I remember thinking to myself, these are my people, and this is where I'll finally be happy. Around this same time in my life, I also believed that sexism was pretty much over. I'm 41, so I grew up kind of in between major women's movements. No one was talking about feminism when I was in my teens and early 20s. And in some ways, it felt like almost an insult to the last generation to even question how far women had come in recent decades. So many of my early experiences seemed to reinforce this idea that there was nothing left to fight for. My mom and stepmom had successful careers. My dad took me to a STEM conference when I was 10 and regularly reminded me I could be anything I wanted. I was praised in classrooms. So when I started experiencing more subtle kinds of sexism at those first few corporate jobs, that point of view, that sexism was mostly over, made it easy for me to laugh off or pretend it didn't exist. And I did. Until my early 30s, when that very rosy way of seeing things started to unravel for a few different reasons, a main one being my transition to the ad agency world. One of the first things I noticed was the drinking. It's just part of agency culture. Most kitchens are stocked with booze. It's not uncommon to see people start drinking in the early afternoon. A few drinks at the end of a long week with coworkers, cool. Not cool was when it started to feel like getting drunk with the bosses was a requirement to be in with them, and I didn't want to, so I was not in. It was like this at 3 of the 4 agencies that I worked at. Another thing I noticed was pretty much no women in creative leadership and no people of color at all. And then came the not so subtle stuff. At the end of a lunch interview at a trendy downtown restaurant, the copy chief making the hiring decision looked deep into my eyes and asked if he could order ice cream so he could watch me eat it. This was 20 minutes after telling me how much he hated his wife, and he did that for a really long time too. So I left. I called the woman from HR who set up the interview twice. She never called me back. At another agency, I was offered $5,000 to go to dinner with a prospective client, and on and on. My bubble had officially burst. These are the fun lessons I learned about the reality of working in the ad industry. That I'd have to put myself in compromising situations to get hired or get ahead, that creativity was apparently white, that even though I thought I'd be great at it, leading creative teams might not be in the cards for me, and that I was just too sensitive and too prude to make it in this industry. The thing is, I started really liking the creative work I'd been doing at the time, but I was ready to quit and leave all that behind anyways. I didn't know it at the time, but I was also getting ready to become part of a documented phenomenon. Talented creative women dropping out of the industry mid-career like I'd planned to do. But right before I did that, I took one last part-time freelance job in advertising where I met my current business partner, Jordan Pintar. We connected right away. We're both artists, and we quickly figured out two things. One, we made magical work together, and two, we'd both had it with the ad industry. When we first started talking to each other about our experiences with harassment, we thought maybe they were isolated, a few bad apples. Then we were introduced to Dr. Jean Groh, a Marquette University professor who'd been studying gender in advertising for 20 years. What her research helped us understand was that our experiences were in fact not at all isolated. They were systemic. There is a condoned culture of misogyny. There are huge disparities in creative leadership, yet no one around us seemed to notice or care. Jordan's 14 years younger than I am, so another thing I realized around this time was that my generation hadn't done much to make it better for hers. As soon as the enormity of all of this hit us, we realized we couldn't stand for it. We were done working in these environments, but we definitely weren't going away, and we weren't going to be quiet about it either. We came to the conclusion that if we wanted better for women and young people in our industry, it was on us to do something about it. We were broke, and we were scared that we would fail, but in 2015, we started Black Paint anyways. It was almost like we had to. Early on, we decided our company's covert mission would be to help change this. We became activists in our industry, making noise about things like sexual harassment, racism, and toxic workplace cultures. You may or may not be surprised to know how many men and women told us this stuff was no big deal and to shut up about it. Or my personal favorite, that we were acting like victims, and this was our reaction every time. Since then, Me Too and Time's Up have hit the scene hard. And what was the first sister movement to come out of the original Time's Up effort? Time's Up advertising. So we don't get called crazy as much, at least not to our face. But what's interesting is those same people who told us to be quiet seem to like the idea of change and inclusion these days. It's kind of the thing to say you care about. But truly confronting the industry's issues and having real, in-depth conversations about it, not so much. I think it was like a month or two after Time's Up advertising debuted, we went to an industry event celebrating women. So during the Q&A at that event, somebody brought up the issue of harassment. The majority of the panelists, all women, totally downplayed it when that was brought up. Finally, the only one who was willing to dig in asked the audience to raise their hands if they'd experienced a Me Too moment at work. Almost all 100+ women there did. She then told everyone to look around and tell her this wasn't an issue we needed to talk about at a damn event about women in advertising. People ask me why all the time. What is it about this industry that makes it so prone to harassment? Remember that casualness I was so excited about when I was getting ready to make that move to the agency side? The ping pong tables and the beer kegs? That same tool that's used to attract talent is also what's used to put people, young women especially, in compromising situations. So the party culture is always a big part of my answer, combined with power disparities, lack of diversity, and many young staffers. And the harassment we experienced is really no surprise at all. In fact, it was the exact perfect recipe for it. So what do we do about it, no matter what line of work we're in? Because by now, I hope this cultural moment has made it undeniable that there is no type of workplace that's exempt from this. Well, I'm not here to give women the usual step up your game advice, because we've heard that already. Besides, this isn't and has never been an issue about merit, about being good enough or smart enough. Even framing this as a women's issue is part of the problem. It lets everyone else off the hook. So what I will do is give women, men, and everyone in between a starting point for thinking about this in some less conventional ways. Many argue that true gender equality can't be achieved, true gender equality in the workplace, that is, can't be achieved until there's gender equality at home. And for straight women, things are still pretty unbalanced there. One recent study showed that 76% of working women are still doing the majority of the housework, and I can hear you already laughing about the other one, which is that 30% of men have admitted to doing housework poorly on purpose because they knew their spouse would fix it for them and then also do it for them in the future. It's kind of backwards, I think, to expect gender equality in the workplace if we aren't expecting it in our personal relationships. Women require it. Men offer it. I know it's not easy to break habits that have been passed down for generations. My husband and I naturally fall back into old patterns when we aren't paying attention, but we have to try harder here, all of us. I often refer to myself as a recovering nice girl. I was taught indirectly, so I think really socialized, to be sweet, agreeable, to make other people comfortable, even at the cost of my own comfort. A therapist named Asia Solar said it in a way that punched me right in the gut. In our country, being a nice girl is such an ingrained expectation that it is painful and sometimes shocking to realize we've cultivated so much pleasantness, we've dulled our own power. And it starts early in life. 74% of teenage girls say they feel under pressure to please everyone, which makes me really sad. Some people have called this whole nice girl thing the disease to please. Making waves and demanding change can feel really unnatural for some of us. But unless it's a safety issue, I'm asking you to do it anyways, because being polite has gotten very little accomplished. Just consider this. I'm not saying we all need to turn into jerks. Just when you leave, take like 10 seconds and think about the fact that there is a big difference between being a nice girl and a kind woman, or said another way, a big difference between pleasing people and loving and respecting people. Another form of cultural conditioning that prevents progress is competition among women. It has a name, Highlander syndrome. In male-dominated environments where women know there can only be a few of them, for tokenism, they compete with each other. So women, I'm asking you to be self-aware of how you treat other women. Notice if and when you're tearing other women down more often than you're building them up, or if you're hating on other women for no real reason. Stop and ask yourself why, and who that behavior really benefits. Like many women, I have good men in my life, men who not only don't fear equality, but help fight for it. My husband, Tyrone, especially. And this isn't Tyrone, by the way, this is just a guy with a good sign. Lots of people met Tyrone today, and they're like, that's not Tyrone, so. If you consider yourself among the good guys, I hope that means that you're speaking up when you see other men acting badly. And not just to look like the good guy or for the pat on the back, but even when it's hard and no one's looking, because it's the right thing to do. Think about the fact that the men who really need to hear this stuff are way more likely to listen to you than they are to me. Please don't be paralyzed by thinking you have to do or say the perfect thing to get involved. No advocate for any cause is perfect or knows everything. If you make a mistake, you'll learn from it. What you can't do is stay silent, though, especially because you now know the extent of the problem. Don't just show us you're good men. Teach other men how to be good men. For any not-so-good guys, I hope you're able to be honest with yourself about how you've participated in or upheld the current system. If you've done harm, hold yourself accountable. Change, make amends, get help if you need it. I'm talking therapy. Therapy is kind of the ultimate self-reflection exercise. And to any really terrible men with no remorse, I don't have much to say to you at all, other than I hope the people you've hurt get some justice, and if I can help them get it, I will. A year and a half after Me Too, Some harassers have been fired, and corporations are nervous. But besides that, not much has changed in most workplaces other than the amount of lip service about it. Jodi Kantor, who's a New York Times reporter, one of them that helped break the story, was recently asked if she thought American workplaces had made any real changes since. This was her answer. Notice she's not talking about mid-level managers. Women have been making gains there for a while now. She's talking about the boss of the bosses, owners and CEOs. And right now, only 5% of CEOs at Fortune 500 companies are women, which is actually a figure that's down from 2017. And in my industry, less than 1% of US ad agencies with national and international accounts are owned by women. Less than 1%. I respect people trying to make change from the inside, but I'm not waiting for old leaders to see the light. My personal philosophy is more in line with Ava's. I built my own house, so I don't have to rely on them. And in my house, we don't tolerate harassment or discrimination. The path to getting there can be longer and harder for women and people of color, so we have to help each other out. I'm not saying, I know business ownership isn't for everyone, but there has to be a whole lot more of us. I bet at least a few people who hear this talk have that in them, that entrepreneurial spark, that vision, that drive. No one tells us this, but starting a business isn't rocket science, and you don't need a business degree. No matter what, it'll be scary. Don't let that fear get the best of you. This moment in time is challenging all of us to change our thinking, not only about our workplaces, but all of our institutions, from government to family dynamics. Here again are those things you can do to help on the workplace front. Establish equality at home. Kill the disease to please. Uplift other women. Good guys, step up. Not so good guys, get help and build our own houses. I don't want anyone else to be hurt or diminished. I don't want the world to lose out on their talent. I hope you don't either. Make no mistake, we're up against deep-seated systemic flaws that will take real work to undo, but it's not all doom and gloom. I actually feel a lot of optimism right now, because the world's already different from when Jordan and I first started making noise in our own little corner of the world. In huge part because this next generation of young women don't see questioning how far we have or haven't come as an insult to those who've come before them. They see it as a way to honor them. I want to end by asking everyone, me and you and him and her and them, to be part of this historic moment and to take action to create not only better workplaces, but a better world. Thanks so much for listening.